Hi everyone, I'm Dan from JazzComposersPresent.com, an online space where composers, musicians, and listeners come together to celebrate the music we love. I'm joined today by Mike Holober, Grammy-nominated pianist, composer, conductor, full professor at the City College of New York, and 2022 recipient of the American Academy of Arts and Letters Andrew Imbrie Award in Music. Mike is here to share his thoughts on generating harmony.
Hi, thank you, Dan, and thanks, Jazz Composers Present. Such a great platform, and I'm really happy to share this with so many other great writers. Today I want to share some thoughts on generating harmony. First of all, I'll start with a disclaimer. Last time, my disclaimer is whenever I say always, I mean often. And when it comes to generating harmony, I can come up with enough chords to ruin any song. So just because you have all these tools, they're just something for you to explore with, and you should never overdo it, like 20 chords per note. But the first idea is something that you should be familiar with, and that is that just looking at a single note, you should be able to find many chords that go with it. Dan, you could put up the first slide there. So here's another disclaimer. This is the melody. Yeah, I wrote that. Pretty good, huh? So now I'm just going to play a chromatic scale, come up with a chord for each one. So you can go to the second slide. Here's a solution for something like this. You should get fast with these kind of tools. And I'm really trying to make voicings that pay attention to internal structures and good distances. And this solution sounds like this. Really keeping the color balance equal. There are no duds in there. And also you could hear that I couldn't reach some of them. I always say when someone does an assignment, it's like that, I always think that's good if you can't play it on the piano, because they're not piano voicings, it's a voicing assignment. Okay, then you can go to the third slide. Then the next idea here is that based on the bass movement or the chord type, to go through some exercises. So here the melody is again this each time, and it says bass down by fifths. So you might try and then see what kind of chords you can come up with, or bass up or down by half steps or whole steps, or bass, or where they're all major sevenths. And so there's no tension and release. So now the motion of the lowest part, in this case still the bass, controls, it's sort of like a counterpoint, and that's the tension and release. Okay, so those are sort of very traditional. Some other ways to look at that, though, is very often I look at harmony as like a grid. And here's your chord, here's your modality, here's another one. Well, let's say this is an A flat, and here's your information, and it's in D flat. Let's do a little sliding around and adjusting, and that A flat could now be a G sharp, and we're in a D Lydian world, which is very different than the D flat major world. So you can go to the fourth slide, please. So if you look at the second chord voicing down here, this is a complete A major scale, but it's not based on the root, the third, the seventh. It's just like a modal block. So here's A major, but right near it is an F Lydian world. So that's sort of that idea of just shifting those around. So let's go to the next slide. This is really just a blank page to do assignments on, but you can see it says the Fred Hirsch change a note exercise. So on the next slide, I'm going to skip to the second line here. And the idea here is play 3 notes and change one and see what you come up with. Improvising counterpoint. So now what I'm doing is this. I'm just changing one note at a time and looking for harmony. And what like if you heard them all as chords is then try that with 4 notes. It gets a lot harder. And then another exercise I like a lot at the bottom here, it says the diatonic crawl. And the idea is I'm just going to throw my hands down and play in a modality and then shift on one of those notes looking for another modality. So that sounds like this. Oh, and by the way, the reason it says unfixed on the second one is that was how I improvised that. I just wrote it down. So I didn't really compose that. It was just that was the exercise as I tried it. Could be better, but was okay. Okay, here's the crawl. This is all D flat. Okay, now let's go listen to some examples where some of those techniques and thought processes are employed. This first piece is from a project that I wrote for Israeli saxophonist Eli Djibri and Avishai Cohen, the trumpet player for the WDR band. This is Eli's tune called Cuba. This is the intro. The second example from this piece is a setting of the head. It's just trumpet and a low line, piano, bass, clarinet. And then there's another setting of the head in this where the band comes in, unison, flugelhorns, trombones, comping. I want to make one quick comment here. This comes from our friend Pete McGinnis. One time we were doing a masterclass together and he was talking to the compers and he said, jazz rhythms, jazz rhythms. So notice that even though this music is very quiet and gentle and serene, it's still got a push and it still swings. And I just want to reinforce that. I think it's something for all of us to remember that we're still writing jazz when we bring in these other stylistic components. Really nice playing from Avishai there. This next example is from Jared Schoenig Big Band record called Two Takes. I was the session producer and a contributing arranger. Fantastic project for me because there were 8 different arrangers and I got to look at all the scores. And this is originally written for his trio, which is vibes, bass, and drums. So there's no internal information. It's all top and bottom and no center. So it was about choosing harmony to go between those. And so here's 2 settings of the A section, the main melody. All right, now 2 more examples from an original piece called Quake, from my recording called Quake with the Gotham Jazz Orchestra. This is from 2009. And in the beginning, it's just some hung chords, and they're all clusters. And I'm very careful about painting the top with enough weight that even though essentially there are clusters, you can hear the lead line. One more example, same thing with clusters, those voicings that are like modal blocks. This is mostly D flat major, and then eventually it blossoms into C sus. And if you think about D flat Lydian and C sus, they have 4 common tones, a very easy adjustment to create harmonic motion. And I'll share one more thing with you, Dan. We can go to the last slide. Just the idea about translating material. Like if you're like, I don't know B altered that well, think, oh, maybe that's the same as C melodic minor, and start to see things that overlap. And you know that G major is a diatonic triad to C melodic minor. And I was writing the other day, and I was working with this scale. And I was like, what scale is that? It sounds so familiar. Well, it's an inverted, essentially harmonic major without this note, without the second. And I looked inside of it, and there are 2 diatonic triads. And if you take one and put it over the other and then reverse them and then reverse them again, here's the melody. And it sounds like this. So, and then at the bottom, I heard, this is still theory. That isn't actually how I would voice them all. I would open them up and exchange some notes from the top to the bottom. I'd leave some notes out. I might visit a neighbor to one of these notes. But that idea of always giving yourself a lesson every time you go to write something, that should be part of your compositional process. So I hope that gives you some ideas about ways to think about looking for harmony and expands your palette a little bit, and also really piques your curiosity about the search process.
Thanks for watching today's mini lesson. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos in the comment section down below. To watch our full-length events and participate in live Q&As with our presenting artists, head over to jazzcomposerspresent.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.